So how do dogs learn? It's funny. Before I start, is how everybody, or 99% of my clients come here and they always have the same questions. They said, yeah, my dog doesn't behave. And I always laugh when they say that, when their dog doesn't behave. I said, your dog's behaving perfectly fine. He's jumping on your counters. He's biting holes in your sheetrock. You know, he's scrapping on your floor. He's barking when neighbors come, and he has no interest in you. I said, that's perfectly acceptable behavior, just not for you. You know, for the dog, it's absolutely fine. He has no problem with that behavior. And that's one of the biggest things is we as humans, we classify dog behavior as either good or wrong. You know, when a dog growls at somebody and shows his teeth, we say, oh my God, this is bad behavior. And I would say, no, this is actually good behavior. He's actually warning you to stay the fuck away from him. And then if you comply, then you are safe. If you start yelling at him and you're going to go to the dog and try to fight with him, the dog is going to say, well, I just gave you a warning. Let me give you another warning, and I'm going to put my teeth in your skin. And then we think the dog is fighting you, where we as humans actually initiated that fight. And that is the problem between humans and dogs. Is, you know, we tend to be very close-minded about what behavior is good. And I always say all canine behavior, all dog behavior is good behavior. And the reason why I say that is because it's natural behavior for a dog to do. In most cases, all the behaviors that we see from the dog is natural. Yeah, it might not be behavior that we are pleased with. You know, counter surfing or, you know, barking nonstop in your house is very annoying. But, you know, for a dog is probably perfectly fine. So when we look at the behaviors that we want to do or we want to teach, is we kind of need to step away from the obedience. Yeah, we need to step away from the sits, the downs, the stands, the heel, the comes, and that should not be our priority. My priority when I work with dogs is to make sure that first of all, when I am interacting with a dog, that the dog understands me, that the dog has any idea of what I mean. If I move my body a certain way, that said, okay, yep, you want me to come to you, or you want me to stay away, you want me to down, you want me to sit, you want me to do, you know, whatever it is you want me to do, and that he understands my communication, and vice versa, that I understand his communication. And that way, if my dog and I learn to communicate, learning the tricks is very easy, because dogs possess a lot of innate behaviors that if the dog would perform these innate behaviors when we are cueing it, then 99% of the people are extremely happy, because most of the innate behaviors that we want is a recall, is the dog that goes away from us, is the dog that lays down, is the dog that sits, is the dog that stops barking when we tell him to do, and it's a dog that starts pissing or stops peeing when we ask him to do, and a dog that is calming down when we tell him to do, and a dog that is getting a little bit excited when we ask him to do. And then if we cover all this stuff, then we have 99% of the behaviors that we want. And lucky for us is all those behaviors are already in the dog. The dogs are born with those behaviors, so we don't need to teach the dog any of these behaviors. You know, I always laugh with people, you know, when they said, oh, I need to teach my dog to sit. And then I look at them and said, you've never seen your dog sit? He sits all the time. He sat when he was born. I said, oh, I need to teach my dog to lay down. Well, the fucker lays down every night. He goes to bed. He just doesn't lay down for you when you ask him to. And the reason why is because he probably doesn't understand you. So when we shift our mind from obedience to learning how to communicate, we're going to have a better chance. However, that is not enough That is not enough. If we just focus on communication, that is not enough. We really need to understand how the dogs learn and why dogs do things, you know. I always, you know, when some of my clients says, my dog barks at the UPS store, why? I said, because he freaking likes it. Yeah, I said, why do dog things? It's because it's motivating for them, it's reinforcing for them, otherwise they would not do anything. You know, if they are jumping on you, it's because they like it and it's reinforcing for them. Yeah, if they bark for non-stop, it's because it's reinforcing for them. Eventually they are going to get something out of it. If they're begging, you know, at your dinner table, and then you shove them away, and eventually you give in, you give them a cookie, you just taught your dog that begging for 45 minutes is eventually successful. And then the next time when you have guests over and you're like embarrassed and you're not going to feed the dog's going to beg now for 90 minutes because he says, oh, let me do this behavior a little bit longer, because eventually it's going to be reinforcing. And that's what it is. So in order for us to get the behaviors that we want, I think it's very important that we understand how dogs learn. And before we answer that question is, we need to answer the question, why do dogs the things they do? And this is a very important question. So why do dogs do the things they do? And the most important reason is to survive. Everything a dog does is to survive. That's his main goal in life, is survival. The second thing why they do the stuff is to better their situation. How can I set that situation to my hand? How can I get things done to make me feel good? And basically, those are the two main drivers why a dog does anything. It said, hey, I need to do things to survive, and I need to better my situation. Sleeping is surviving, eating is survival, social interacting is survival, because it gives us a good feeling. Trying to bark at you and paw at you is a good manipulative thing to better his situation, because now your hand is going to scratch on his chest, and he said, well, this is a lot better than without a hand on my chest. You know, barking at the cabinet door is probably going to be a better choice, because eventually what's going to happen is a cookie comes in my mouth, because my owner's annoyed, and eventually he's going to do that. Jumping on my owner is probably a good idea, because eventually he's going to shove me off and I have physical contact, and now he starts barking at me and talking to me, and that's what I want. I have physical contact. So the dogs are motivated by these two things, is to survive and to better their situations at all times. And if we understand that, then we have basically control over the dog. And because we can, as humans, we can start taking things away that the dog needs in order to survive. And if I go back here, if I do A here, so one of the things that dogs need to survive is what? Food, water, sleep. What else? Social interaction. Exercise. What else? Sex. What else? Can you come up with one? That's about it, huh? Yeah. That's all these things the dog needs. And we can control that. We can deprive the dog from food. We could deprive the dog from sleep. We could deprive the dog from social contact. We could deprive the dog from exercise. And we could deprive the dog from sex. I would not deprive the dog from water. Yeah? So we have quite a lot of control over the dog. And so if we're very strategic about this, then we are, we can be master manipulators. We can tell him, if you pay attention to me, you get food. No attention is no food. Very simple. And then if I'm very consistent with that, if I say, hey dog, if you don't pay attention to me, you're not eating. And then dog people feel bad. It's like, this motherfucker hasn't paid attention for me in like 3 days. Well, guess what? The dog didn't eat in 3 days. But now you feel bad. And then that's how eventually dogs do what? They better their situation. They said, if I ignore this motherfucker for 3 days, then he's going to feel guilty and I better my situation. So what you basically have taught the dog is to not pay attention for you to 3 days and eventually you feed him. So you taught the opposite, and because you felt guilty. Because I said, oh my God, my dog's getting skinny. Well, dogs will not die after 3 days of food. I go up to 5, 6, 7 days without feeding. And then if they don't eat in 6 or 7 days, then I'll bring him to the vet and have him checked out, see if everything's okay with him. Maybe he doesn't eat because of a medical reason. We need to exclude that. There's research out there that I can share with you where in a very controlled environment, researchers have not fed dogs for up to 120 days. And the dogs were completely fine. They had food, they had water, they had sleep, they had social contact. And they had electrolytes. So they made sure that they had the vitamins and minerals in the water, but they had no food. Were the dogs skinny? Hell yeah. Were the dogs energetic? Yes. Did they die? No. Yeah. So dogs are very resilient to not having food. So not feeding your dog for 4 or 5 days is totally fine. And I have dealt with really stubborn dogs that would not eat for 4 or 5 days, and then eventually they turned to me and they said, okay, now I'm really hungry. And they start eating. So that really hungry is what's very important. And so when we look in how dogs learn, dogs do things for a reason. And dogs, they have motivators. Dogs have motivators. And one of these motivators is what? Food. And why do dogs like food? What drives that?
Survival.
Yeah, hunger. Do I need to teach the dog to be hungry? No, I do not teach the dog to be hungry. So the dog will eventually get hungry. There's nothing, so we call this, that hunger, we call that a primary reinforcer. Yeah, we call this a primary reinforcer. And the reason why we call it primary is because it's an innate driver. So there is no teaching in primary reinforcers. So in primary reinforcers, there is no teaching. And that is what's really important to understand, is any primary reinforcer we do not need to teach. What is another primary reinforcer? Thirst. So water. Water can be a primary reinforcer. Do never, ever, 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 do never, ever, ever deprive your dog from water. Yeah, very dangerous. What is another primary reinforcer?
Potty.
Yeah. Go to the potty pen. That's a very hard one to train, but we can do that. What do you think about play? Play and chase. Do we need the dog to teach him to chase stuff? Eventually, when they're hungry, they're going to chase stuff. Yeah? And what is that? That's hunting drive or prey drive. All dogs have prey drive, depending on how hungry they are. Yeah? Some have very high prey drives innately, and some of them have very low prey drive, like the King's Charles Spaniel. That probably will take 60 days for that motherfucker to get off his ass and actually chase a rabbit. You know, because he rather lays in his down like Tempur-Pedic comfortable with his little mate serving him. But, you know, eventually he has prey drive. It's in his little toe, and we can pull it out, and he'll start chasing things when he's very motivated, when he's really hungry. Yeah? But so play is not something that we need to teach. The dog has when he sees a squirrel, you have not taught your dog to chase the squirrel. The dog just did that naturally. Yeah? So those, and again, we call that primary reinforcers. Yeah? The way we can use primary reinforcers is we can start conditioning the dog that a primary reinforcer is going to be available to us. We can start manipulating the dog in such a way that we're going to say, you know what? I'm going to tell you that a primary reinforcer, food, water, a chase, whatever it is becoming available. And you're getting that through me. And that is what we call a secondary reinforcer. Yeah? So secondary reinforcers, those are conditioned. All secondary reinforcers are conditioned. And a secondary reinforcer can be something very simple as my clicker. This is a secondary reinforcer. If I click and then I give my dog food, if I click secondary and then I give my dog food, he's going to start associating that clicker with what? Food is coming. Click and food. The funny thing with these secondary reinforcers is that they always come before the primary reinforcer. So if I have my secondary reinforcer that precedes my primary reinforcer, which is food, and my secondary, say, is the click, then my dog is going to understand that if my click precedes the primary reinforcer, he's going to be conditioned, and this is what we call Pavlovian conditioning, classical conditioning, that, hey, that click means food. This is really good. Yeah? So now let's do it. Let's make an experiment. And now I'm going to say, I'm going to make a tertiary reinforcer. So we'll implement a third one. So we got this glass and food. Oh my God, what are we doing now? Food. I'm going to keep doing this. If I now do this, what do you guys expect? A click. Yeah? This is amazing. Wow. We can use that in training. So we can say, in a tertiary reinforcer, I can say good with my voice. So now what I'm going to do is I have 3, 2, 1. So I have a tertiary reinforcer. Good boy. Food. Ah, the dog says, it's freaking awesome. Every time this guy says good to me, he is predicting that a click is coming, and then every time a click is coming, guess what's coming? Food. Oh, this is awesome. So now I can start telling the dog what is coming, and that he might be a little bit patient, because what I'm going to do to him, here, there we go. Oh, is it coming? And there's a click, and then they said, oh my God, this is amazing. And then food immediately follows.
Why isn't the clicking?
Because we need to teach the dog that the concept of time. The question was, why is the click not enough? I said, because just with a click, we will not have enough vocabulary to communicate to the dog that he needs to continue doing what he's doing, and that he needs to be patient, and that he needs to trust us that food eventually is coming. So if I keep doing this, a couple of taps on the glass, and then the clicker, and then immediately food is coming, then my dog is going to do what? Trust my communication. And so how dogs learn is, is through communication. But the first thing that we need to do is, I always tell my people, we're going to build a relationship based upon trust, respect, and fun, is that the dog needs to trust your communication. And that is very important. So one of the rules that we have, is that after a secondary reinforcer, a primary reinforcer is always given. So if we have click, food, in this particular case, is always coming. So don't click and don't give your dog anything, because your dog is not going to trust you anymore. We need to make sure that that secondary reinforcer is always trustworthy. And then the delivery of the primary reinforcer, which is food, the speed in what you do that with is going to influence how good of a communicator you are. Yeah? And I always say is, when your delivery of your primary reinforcer is between 0 and half a second, I would say, take my job. You're really fucking good. Yeah? You're really, really, really good. These are professional dog trainers, I always say, professional animal behaviorists that click and have the mechanics and can reward really fast and really good with a lot of accuracy. If you're between 0, half a second, and 1 second, I would say you're really good. You're really, really good. Yeah? That is something that we should strive towards, to be that fast between half a second and a second. Yeah? If you're between 1 second and 2 seconds, then you're good, and your dog will still kind of understand you and trust you. If you're between 2 and 3 seconds, well, you should go practice. You should go practice your mechanical skills, because you're a little bit slow. Anything slower than 3 seconds, I would go say, buy goldfish. You're too slow for a dog. That's a joke. Yeah? I will be right with you. The reason why I say buy a goldfish is because it's going to take you a couple months, maybe a year, to have your dog start trusting you. Because if you say click, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now there's food coming. Your dog has no freaking idea why you ever clicked for. And now the dog, if you say click, and now the dog does this, scratches balls for a little bit, and then you give him food. You just gave him food for scratching his balls, not for standing. And then the dog is like, wait a minute. He said, sit. I sat. Then nothing happened. Then I stood up and I licked my wiener. And then he gives me food. What does he want? Does he want me to stand up and lick my wiener? And so we're getting the dogs confused. Yeah. So the delivery of R1, that time interval between the secondary reinforcer and the primary reinforcer is crucial. Yeah. People ask me, why the hell are your dogs so good? And when you work with my dog, why does my doggy don't do that with me? It's because I'm really fast. I'm really fast. I am sometimes 2/10, 3/10 of a second, half a second, and after my click, the dog's got his food. Yeah. The other thing that I'm really good at is when I see behavior, that my click is right on that behavior and not a second after the behavior. Yeah? So I want to say, I want you to raise your hand when my hand's on my head. Yeah, you're too slow, you see that? Okay, do it, keep doing. Oh, you're anticipating, because it wasn't on my head, I did this. There you go, you see? So now there you go, I didn't even put it on my head. Yeah, too late. Yeah? So that's how fast dogs are. So when we're doing this and we're clicking, yeah, we're like, wow, my dog's doing great stuff. I better do this. Hopefully, I nailed the timing. So once I start clicking around, but my dog is already either executing something else, yeah, or you were anticipating the dog is like the dog's going to sit, yeah. And then you clicked, well, the dog's ass is not even on the ground. Now you're teaching your dog to hover. It's like, I can get away with not sitting. And the same with the down. The down is there, but the elbows are not on the ground. And the dog goes down, and there you are, click and food. But the dog's got his elbows off the ground. The dog says, hey, wait a minute. Oh, so I need to hover? Yeah? And it's with a recall too. The dog is coming to you. You see a squirrel, and the dog looks at you from the squirrel, and you say, "Good boy," and then the dog is running back to the squirrel. That's not a recall. The recall is back here with you. Yeah. So often, what we do is the delivery of our the timing of our secondary enforcer and the delivery of our primary enforcer is very slow. So the same thing, and this is where I'm coming, is the presentation of our secondary enforcer after behavior. So now we see a response that we want. This R plus. I'll do BR plus, so it's not a correct term in animal behavior, but it's going to make things easier for you guys. So behavioral response that we want, and then what we're going to do is we're going to present the secondary reinforcer followed by the primary reinforcer. And if the behavioral response of sitting is what we want, and the dog performs that sitting behavior, but while you're clicking, the dog stands up, what did you actually click for? Standing up. And then you give him food, or you say, oh shit, I clicked for standing up, I think, and you stop giving your dog food after you click. What does that make you? It starts with an ass, H-O-L-E. Asshole. Yeah? Because he can't trust you. You're a liar. Does that make sense? And now he says, oh, wait a minute. That clicker does not predict the primary reinforcer all the time. And he said, I don't trust you. So if the dog starts not trusting your communication, why should he keep investing in learning with you? Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
What about when the dog pre-anticipates the behavior you want? Like, we do this, it's doing the dog just does the circles as we're like
Without you?
around. Yeah, without clicking. That's
So,
just
just
like a pattern. Like
without
she
you?
do.
Is she next to you?
Yes.
Oh, so now she's offering the behavior.
Yes.
That's what we want, yeah?
Okay.
We don't ask it anymore. The dog's now staying with us, so that means that we can go to the next level. Yeah? Then we can raise criteria, and I'll answer that question in a little bit. So, the same thing here. This timing, the presentation of your secondary reinforcer is incredibly important, and the same timetable can be used. You know, if you can click within 0 to half a second, I always tell people, take my job. You know, like you're that good. It's like incredible. If you can click within half a second to a second, you're really, really good. You know, 1 to 2 seconds, you're good, but you're starting to create a little bit of a gray area here that your dog will need to find out. If you click between 2 and 3 seconds, well, go buy a couple chickens and practice on the chickens so you don't ruin the dog. And if you click 3 seconds and later, you know, do go buy the goldfish. Because you and your dog is going to be in a world of problems. You're going to be in a world of hurt because you're going to start reinforcing behaviors that you don't want. And then eventually you're going to be mad at the dog for stuff that you create, you reinforce. And that is not fair for the dog. So that's why I always tell people, go buy the goldfish. And people don't hate me for that, but it's fine. Okay? I'm going to see here, because I'm by myself, I'm getting that question with you to see if people have questions here. You're confusing Bruno with all the clicking. I bet you. Yes, sir, you have a question.
Well, I think I'm doing it wrong. In the first lesson, when we moved to the hand feed,
Yeah.
I'd click, but make them earn it. So then I'd walk away. So I'm 3 to 4 seconds away between click and the food going in the mouth.
Okay. So there's a difference. This is a good. There's a little bit of a distinct difference here. So this gentleman asked me. I said, "Hey, in the beginning, when I start charging my clicker, when I start conditioning the clicker to food, I click and you have us walk backwards." That is absolutely correct. Yeah. So I click primary enforcer, and then I walk backwards. So I have a behavioral response from the human, behavioral response of the human, walk backwards. And I have food in my hand. The nice thing about food in the hand is that the dog knows you have food in the hand. So you were absolutely correct that, and you were very trustworthy to the dog, that click, here's food. So the presentation of your secondary enforcer, the dog comes to you, and the presentation of food is right there. Click, and there's food. He just not acquired it. Does that make sense?
But if we have his attention and he's moving in that direction, do I get a 1 second mark? Or do you measure me between my click and the moment of consuming?
Well, it depends on the criteria of behavior that we're going to set. So I'll explain that in a little bit. So there's a big difference, yeah, between the acquisition of food and your presentation of the primary reinforcer. Yeah. So if I click and I present food, the dog trusts that food is there. Yeah. That does not mean that he has it already in his mouth. Yeah. If I say yes and I show my ball and I throw my ball, the dog sees the ball flying away after the secondary reinforcer of yes, and the primary reinforcer flies away, but I presented the ball. So the dog trusts that the ball is there. The dog trusts that the food is there. In order for him to get the food, what do we teach him? Well, be a little bit motivated. and come to me. Always come to me. So that does not break the trust in the secondary reinforcer. That only increases the motivation to come and acquire the food a little bit faster. That only increases the motivation to be with you a little bit faster, to stay with you a little bit longer. But if I would click, and then I said, fuck, and there's the food, then my dog says, haha, I have 5 seconds to do other stuff. Check my wiener, check my butt, scratch my ears, check out, see what this guy's doing, and then come back to you. And then when we deliver the food, after the dog has checked out, what have we taught him? Well, a lot. A lot.
He doesn't have to respond right away.
That he doesn't need to respond right away, and that he has 5 seconds to do whatever the frick he's pleasing. And that you are totally okay with that as a very inconsistent teacher. And then the dog says, I own your ass. Does that make sense? And then that is the difficulty in doing this, and that's where I'm very, very careful with my students. So I set them up for success. I set their communication up for success, because losing the trust from your dog in your communication is the most devastating thing that we can do. Your dog should always trust your communication. That's why we do this in steps. Yes, sir.
So when we are walking backwards and clicking now, I've noticed a huge faster time with him coming to get the food now. I mean, it's almost like the click and the yeah.
And he's like a rocket.
He's on it now. It wasn't that way in the beginning. There is no 3 seconds anymore. You click, you walk back, and that food he's there in your hand.
Yeah, yeah.
So it changes. It does help.
Exactly.
It will help.
Exactly. So the dog gets faster and faster and faster, because what he said, you know what? The faster I'm going towards this guy, the faster I acquire that food, because his primary reinforcer is hunger, and so he wants to eat, and he trusts the clicker. Yeah. And you could do a test even. If you would click and not give him food, the dog is going to respond to the click. Yeah, don't do that, by the way. But, do it once. And then start feeding him after every click, because otherwise he's not going to start trusting the clicker.
But after the first click with Zoe, don't need the clicker. She's Velcro.
Yeah, but you need the clicker. You need the clicker. It's not because the dog stays with you that you can't communicate.
Well, but I have to close my fist and click and then open. She's, like he says, just ready for the food.
Good.
I train her. If I bring out a morsel, she already knows it's sitting down before I even give the commands now. It's kind of...
Yeah, so slowly but surely is what we're going to do, and this is my lecture for the people that came in, is how dogs learn. Yeah. So one of the things that we're going to do is, when we have our motivators hunger and we have conditioned our secondary reinforcer and our tertiary reinforcer with our primary reinforcer, whether it's food, water, prey drive, sex, all the stuff that we have, social contact, is we're going to tell the dog that your behavioral response of the dog, BRD, whatever that is, needs to be something different. Now I want you to sit and be patient. Now I want you to come to me, sit in front of me, be patient, look me in the eye before the clicker is coming. And then I click, I grab the food, and now I do that. Then what I do is like what these beautiful people are doing, is they walk in a circle, and in order for you to get your food, where do you need to be? Right next to you. So the behavioral response from the dog is stay with the left leg, or whatever leg you say. And when that is checked, what is following? Secondary reinforcer means click. And what is following immediately after that? Primary reinforcer of food. And now we say, oh, this is really good. I have my dog that stays with me. Oh, okay. So now I want to build duration in that behavior. This is cool. I'm going to go back to my tertiary reinforcer. Where's my blue pen? So R3, and what was R3? Good. Remember my glass game?
Right.
Good. So remember this. I did this early. And every time that glass comes, eventually that clicker comes. So the way we do that is we're going to say good, click food. Good, click food. Good, good. Very good. Click food. So that way, what are we doing? We're building duration into the behavior. But we're also conditioning, so before we do that, we need to, like we conditioned the primary reinforcer to conditioned the secondary reinforcer to the primary reinforcer. Click food, click food, click food, click food. What are we going to do? Good, click food. Good, food. Good, food. Good. You see me do that on the boards. I like to train the dogs or condition the dogs on the touch boards. Good. Good. And I click. So now the dog says, hey, wait a minute. Every time I hear good, click is coming. Good. Good. Oh, wait a minute. Sometimes I hear that good a couple times. Does that make sense? And now the dog starts saying, oh, wait a minute. If I stay in this behavior, he might throw a couple goods here, and eventually it's going to be a big party because that click is coming, the ball is coming, yes is coming, avaya is coming, bite is coming, whatever is coming. But my secondary reinforcer is coming that gives me access to what? My primary motivator, whatever that is. Food, toys, balls, sex, sleep, potty, social contact. Whatever you want to use, any primary driver, anything that makes your dog tick, yeah. So, and that's what we do. And then, what we do is basically we are going to set, and in my Tyrant to Teacher video, I talk about this quite often. We are going to start setting criteria. Criteria of behavior. Listen, doggy, what you are doing right now is not enough. I want this. And then this is not enough. I want that. And then I want rah, 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 rah. Oh, I teach my dog a guard. So eventually, we are going to raise criteria in the behavior that we are seeing. And I said, you know what, doggy? I want you to figure out something. That just coming to me is not enough. And then one of the things that I like to do is like walk in a circle, yeah? And now the dog's all over here. Like, hey, Dad, what are you doing? And then the dog suddenly comes to my left side. Oh, hang on. My dog comes to my left side. Click food. Oh my God. And I keep walking. Oh, and I go this way. And now my dog is like, wait a minute. And he comes back to my left side. And I feed him. Now I'll go this way. Hi, camera. And I click. Now my dog says, holy smokes. This is really cool. This is really cool. And eventually, what I'm doing is I'm creating behavior by raising the criteria. Yeah? And that basically is a very simple explanation how dogs eventually learn. And that learning is communication, and that communication from you needs to be trustworthy, consistent. That is the biggest thing, consistent and true. So, in operant conditioning, so after we've done all these classically conditioned things, you know, we classically conditioned the clicker, we classically conditioned the good, we classically conditioned whatever. Now we can start working in a more operant version. Yeah, we can visit operant conditioning, and we can say that with positive reinforcement, we are going to start reinforcing behavior. Yeah? And reinforcing. That is the key here. We are reinforcing behavior. And what is reinforcing for the dog again? Come on, give me one. Food. Water. Social contact. Sex. Very good one.
I had the sex when I was...
Sleep. Yeah, all that stuff. Sleep and going to the bathroom. Yeah? Sleep is good, yeah? So we can all do that. So what we can do is reinforce the dog with all these things. And we're going to reinforce the things that we want. Yeah?
Is it fair to say never click without food?
Never click without food, yes. Never, ever, ever click without food. It's like your boss saying, your paycheck's coming, I wired it. 1 year later, still waiting for the money, you don't trust the...
But maybe I'm not following. When I see Zoe doing something that I really approve of, that's really good, I acknowledge good and pet her. Maybe it would...
That's good, yeah, that's good.
Be better to good, click, food.
No, if you use always good and then pet, then good becomes a secondary reinforcer of what? Social contact. So that's totally acceptable. Yeah, but in dog training, eventually what we want is we want to reinforce what the behavior that we want. Yeah? Can I touch you, David? No? Let me turn the camera here a little bit. Sorry, Facebook, you're going to be... Do I see David? Yes, we see David. Okay, so I'm dog. Is that behavior that you want?
No.
Is this behavior that you want?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? So if I'm a dog and I am jumping on you all the time, and then I'm going to push you away, and I'm going to say no, off. Do you think the dog understands that English? No, off. The only thing the dogs understand is that you jump back and you bark with him. It's like, oh my God, this is cool. And he's going to try intensify this behavior. And turning around. Yeah, I'm coming towards that. So I'm going to start intensifying this behavior because what is one of the primary reinforcers is social interaction. So with social interaction, let me check my camera here. So with social interaction and giving that social interaction, I'm actually reinforcing something that I don't want. Yeah? So what I need to do is give some, what? Negative. And this is where it comes tricky. Punishment, not reinforcement. Negative punishment. When you don't want it. I'm going to take away the motivator. Okay? You want your kid to do his homework, he doesn't do his homework, you take away the iPad. Dad! Well, iPad goes away until there's a change in behavior. Kid finishes his homework, has an A+, iPad comes back. Positive reinforcement. Yeah? Good job. Brussels sprouts. Lemon pie goes back into the fridge, locked up. Really? Kids eat Brussels sprouts. Lemon pie comes back. Very easy. So same thing with dogs. You know, social contact. Good point. Dog's jumping, doesn't get anything. Dog sits down. Oh my God, good girl. So what did we take away? We took away the social contact. What did we give back? Social contact, something that he was motivated in. Yeah? By petting him, by doing what? When the dog changed, so the behavioral response of the dog changed from jumping to sitting. Jumping elicited a negative response from you, and sitting elicited a positive response from you. And that is, in very simply, is operant conditioning. Yeah?
It works with us every day.
And that is how dogs basically learn. The thing that we need to do is be very smart about this. I'll say something. The dogs are barking. And we're going to give a negative, an aversive, and by putting the dog in the crate. So what is the negative here? Depriving of social interaction. Yeah? If I would let that dog in a crate for half an hour, what does the dog learn? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we go back to the table. Half a second, a second. So how long do you think we should let the dog into the crate?
Half a second.
Couple seconds until he's quiet, and as soon as he's quiet, what do? Immediately out. Oh, wait a minute. If I shut up, I come out of the crate. If I start barking, I go into the crate. Yeah? The reason why people fail with that technique is they put the dog in the crate for longer than 3-4 seconds after the dog is quiet. And they don't repeat it. As soon as the dog barks, then when the dog is outside of the crate, what does he do? He needs to go back inside the crate. So depriving the dog from social contact for a really long time is not going to help. It's only for a couple seconds. And then the trick with that is to do that hundreds and hundreds of times. So if you say, oh, I'm going to take care of my barking problem today, you better take the day off. Because you're going to do that 1,000 times. If you don't do that 1,000 times, you think that's the dog's problem? No, that's your problem. If we would not do that, we will do the opposite. We eventually reinforce what we want, and that is a barking dog. Yes, ma'am?
What about whining in the crate?
Whining is a very difficult thing for German Shepherds. And the reason why is before we can punish whining or readdress whining, we need to make sure that the dog is aware that he whines. So there's a phenomenon with German Shepherds and Labs and a lot of working dogs that have a little bit higher prey. And it's a phenomenon that we call involuntary vocalization. So that means that the dog is whining and the dog has no idea that he's whining. So if you would punish the dog for whining, as you say stop, the dog is going to look at you and say, what the fuck? It's like when somebody starts, like, it's got like a little nervous dick, and he's like, can you stop moving your hand? I said, what do you mean? Just move your hand. My hand's not moving. You see, it's not moving. Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. And then you go back and there he goes again. Stop moving your hand. What hand? That's literally what happens. So once we start interacting with the dog and the whining stops, the dog's like, why? What's going on here? In the concept of involuntary vocalization, there's many cases where the dog actually is very conscious of the vocalization that he makes. However, in order for us as humans to address it, we need to make very, very sure that the behavior that the dog exhibits is a conscious effort. Yeah.
Zoe had a hose or running water in the vacuum.
Goes nuts, yeah.
Goes nuts. And so I think what I'm hearing, since I know she's going to go nuts, before I get the vacuum, I put her in the crate so I don't confuse her on the behavioral, because she's going to bark.
Yeah.
And, you know, earplugs or ignorers.
No, sure.
So is that right reasoning?
Yeah, so one of the things that we can do, if we have a dog, and let me go back to the next point here, and let's talk a little bit about stimulation. Yeah? So if we have a dog that is motivated by barking at the vacuum, so the behavioral response of the dog is barking at vacuum, vacuum. The stimulation is vacuum. So one of the things that we need to do is, in order to have the response disappear, is what can we do? Is eliminate the stimulation. So then people say, hey, I'm going to put my dog in a crate. This is the living room. The dog is not here, and then they vacuum in front of the dog. You think that's going to help the problem, or you think that's going to intensify the problem? Why is it going to intensify the problem?
The dog's trapped in there with the
Yes, and we build up the frustration because the dog cannot access the vacuum. And that's the motivator, yeah? So the next time she's out of the crate and she sees the vacuum, she's going to go 110%. And then you put her back into the crate, and then you vacuum again. And then you start building up that frustration. You didn't take away the stimulus. You actually put your dog on a tether and increased the stimulus. So the only thing that we could do is put the dog in another room and then vacuum when the dog cannot see us. Yeah? So one of the things, and I have done that. So the behavioral response is barking. The stimulus is people on the road. She can see it through the window. People, road, window. What can we do?
block off the view.
Yes, I like what you're thinking. So if we have a house, a wall, and we've got a couple windows in there, and then this is the windowsill that is all scratched up. Yeah? What can we do? Well, put cardboard on the windows and put cardboard on the windowsill. Or buy those outdoor shutters. Don't buy indoor blinds, because they're going to go bye-bye. Yeah? Just buy something outdoor. I said, oh, when you walk around my house, sometimes you see, when I have a new dog here, a new board and train, I say, why the hell did Bart tape off his windows with duct tape and cardboard? He's a nut job. Or sometimes I do like an aluminum blanket. I say, what the hell is going on? Well, because I don't want my dog to bark at a visual stimulation of whatever it is, a bike, my gates that go open and all that stuff. And then my dogs that have been conditioned to not respond, they see the dog now responding to it, and then all my dogs are going to start responding to it. So I take the stimulus away.
But the sound is still there, and that's enough stimulus.
No, is it? That's a question, yeah? So, is it a visual stimulus or is it an audible stimulus? That's the big question, yeah?
Both.
We need to test that. So now we can see it's like, hey, it is not just a visual stimulus, it's an audible stimulus. So now we need to take the audible stimulus away. Cecilia, when you're watching, how did you do that? Leave me a comment. How did we got rid of... I forgot the dog's name. I'm such a bad teacher. But we took care of the problem by buying sound isolating blankets. So now I put the dog in a room and I cover the crate with sound insulating blankets. And then we covered the windows with sound insulating blankets. And they lived in an apartment where they could hear everything, and we put sound insulating material on the floor. And the whole problem disappeared. Lola, that's how we fixed Lola. Wow, I'm a little late to the lesson, but yeah, Lola got cured by that because we took away the visual stimulus and we took away the audible stimulus, and slowly but surely we reintroduced the audible stimulus and we elicited a different response. And that response was reinforced. So first we took everything away and then we reintroduced it. Was this a very quick fix? No, this took about half a year, you know, to reintroduce those things. But we did it without any compulsion. The dog never got beaten. The dog never got yelled. And now the dog has figured it out by himself. And that is how dogs learn, how we can influence how dogs learn is by controlling their environment, and that is what we have done. We are the only ones that can control the dog's environment. The dog cannot control the environment by itself, and the dog always gets responses from the environment. Yeah, whether it's from the mailman, whether it's from your door, whether it's from the doorbell, whether it's from another dog, whether it's from your kitchen, whether it's from anything, whether it's from you know, the dogs. The dog is in constant communication with his environment, and then when his environment does something that is reinforcing for him or her, what is the dog going to do? Repeat the behavior, yes sir. So he's going to repeat it. Yeah? So, and that is the difficulty in dog training. Yeah? And so when we talk about, you know, how do dogs learn, is we need to find the motivator for the dogs, and we understand that dogs do things for two reasons: is to survive and to better their situation all the time, and that the performance of the behavior continues because the behavior itself is reinforcing, and the response that they get from the environment is reinforcing. That is the only reason why dogs keep doing what they're doing. And so in order for us to control that, what do we need to do? We need to make sure first that we have a communication system that the dogs trust. We need to make sure that we understand how dogs learn, that we understand how reinforcement works, that we understand how we can either add something, we can contribute something to the dog's life that is more reinforcing, that is called positive reinforcement, or we take something away, which is what we call negative punishment. Yeah, something that we don't use a lot is negative reinforcement. Yeah, unless you're talking about the deprivation in the crate. The deprivation in the crate is a form of negative reinforcement. It's called social isolation, and I can take that social isolation away when you start paying attention to me, or when you do a behavior that I think you should do by shutting up or laying down or whatever. Yeah, but you know, initially taking the iPad away is what we call negative punishment. A form of negative reinforcement would be if this role is the dog and I squeeze the dog's neck and I take his airway away, and I keep doing that until the dog sits and then I let him breathe, that is a form of negative reinforcement. So it's the removal of something aversive. That is called negative reinforcement training. So I'm going to give you something unpleasant that I will take away if you change the behavior to something that I want. Yeah, that is not how we train here. Yeah, we are not positive trainers here either, because we use negative punishment. I do deprive dogs from food. I do deprive dogs from social contact. I do deprive dogs from sleep. And sometimes I bark at them. Yeah, which is a form of positive punishment. Yeah. And that really works. However, the dog...
You scared? I got scared.
I startled you a little bit. So, and so eventually those are techniques that we can use, you know. You're getting better, yeah? She's getting a little bit She's getting a little bit habituated to my yelling. Yeah, which is great, yes.
You know, other people's influence. We work hard on these trust relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Well, an example, you have 3 grandkids, they see the clicker on the counter, and now we have a click, and hey, don't click, you know, and if you do click, give her this biscuit. But other people in the house, you almost have to say, please don't do that, it's confusing my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yes. I am a Gestapo when it comes to people and my dogs.
Yeah, I can see, and that's been
You
a
do,
problem.
you do not. So, and again, this is how we as owners control the environment. And then people said, oh my God, you're a dick. I said, I can't pet your dog. No. I said, can I pet your wife?
Well, like, exactly.
Yeah. I'm not here. And it's like, it's like, oh, can I hug your wife, pet your kid?
She's still trying to
No.
overcome squeaky.
Exactly. We don't do that.
Yeah.
But with dogs, unfortunately, we are so conditioned that that is what we do. And it's totally fine to say, no, you cannot pet my dog. And please, can you not interact my dog the way you're interacting with my dog? Because this is not how I live and educate with my dog. What you do with your own dog is fine. The way I raise my kid is the way I raise my kid. The way I'm within the law. If I live within a family and we interact this way, that's fine. You know, if my kids shit on the table, that is not your problem. You might not like it, and if you don't like it, don't come in my house. This is what we do. We're table shitters. It's fine. It is totally fine. And then people might say like, this is kind of bizarre. We all live in Utah, and you know, it's fine. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm making this ridiculous example, but those are the rules, boundaries, and limitations that you set in your house with your dog. And you and me and everybody that owns a dog is responsible to control the environment in how you would like the environment to interact with the dog and how the dog can interact with the environment. And the dog cannot control that. We need to educate our environment in order to have success with the dog. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. I come up, you know, I'm walking my dog inside the city, as a dog trainer. So I wear this shirt that says, you know, why invest? You think a cheap dog training you think an expensive dog training is expensive, you know, invest in a cheap one, see what happens. I have these like ridiculous shirts and yet I'm going downtown Seattle with my dog out of control, saying that I'm the master of disaster dog trainer there, like the mumbo jumbo, this is the one you want. You think I give a fuck about what people think? This is how I like to walk my dog. I don't care what you think. You want your dog to walk on a leash? I thought your dog could walk on a leash. My dogs don't walk on a leash. Look what happens when I take the leash off. It's illegal. I can't do it. I do it all the time. But it's illegal. You know, and then my dogs are like, oh my God, like your dogs are jumping on your face and they're sitting on your head. I love it. Yeah. And then people say, oh, I don't want my dog to jump. That's fine. If you come into my house and you're not ready to be like mauled against the ground by 4 German shepherds that are going to attack you and greet you very violently, then don't come to my house. It is fine. You know, it is fine. And so a lot of people have a lot of issues defending their dog. And then when you're not ready to walk on a leash, when you're not ready to walk on a leash, and you take your dog into public, and then you see this perfectly behaved little Chihuahua, and then you've got this big unruly German Shepherd, you start to feel like a little dick. It's like, I feel embarrassed. You haven't taught the dog to walk on a leash yet, and then you're like, because I'm still in training. And then we punish the dog for something that he doesn't know how to do. And that is devastating for our relationship. Because how could we prevent that? Yes, don't go for a walk. Thank you. Use the backyard. Don't go for a walk. I always laugh when people say, I need to take my dog for a walk. I said, why? Why? Why in the hell do you need to take your dog out for a walk? You like to walk, go walk. Your dog doesn't need to walk. Eventually, that's something that we all admire to do. But in the beginning, when we educate ourselves, when we're building this relationship, like I will say crawl, walk, run, is like learn the basics and then, and then put all the stuff that, if you have a little yard, if you have a yard as big as my garage, any dog can have all the physical activity in the world in this little area. I don't need to take him for giant walks. If I have mental activity and I can play a little bit of two-ball in there, he's going to be fine. What I want to work on is, how to live together, how to communicate together, and make sure that we understand each other. And that I'm the best freaking thing in the world, that when I bring him into the public, that I don't fight for attention. Yeah, because that's the biggest issue that people have. Yeah, is the competition with competitive stimulation in public. The dog is more motivated to look at something else than to you, and that is why he's unruly. Because it's squirrel, bike, car, other person, other dog. And so we're constantly in that battle. And so my philosophy is that we need to invest in engagement until the dog is completely obsessed with me. If, like you said, the dog is velcroed to your leg at home, that's great, because now we can start taking him to a little bit more challenging environment and see if he's there too. You bring him to your backyard. Then you bring him to the front yard. You bring him to your neighbor's yard. And if the first thing you do, you bring him to your neighbor's yard or you bring him to a friend's yard and you let the dog go and the dog is right here, you've done your job really well. If you bring him to your friend's yard and the first thing he does is like, zoo, roam around, this is mine, and then eventually he comes to you, probably not ready to take him in public. Does that make sense? And so that is the key thing. And it's that understanding in how to get those things done, that is part how dogs learn, is to understand if I don't get attention or if I don't give attention, I don't get what I want. Is that controlling those motivators. Let me see if there's any questions online here. How can I see comments? I'm trying to comments here, guys. I want to do a test myself. Test. Okay. Okay, no comments. So in our learning process, it's all about controlling those motivators. Yeah. One of the things that I sometimes do with younger dogs is like, hey, you want to work for food or a ball? How do you figure that your dog wants to work for play, social contact, or food?
Is the dog full?
But how do we test that?
Well, we know, because we're the ones that feed them.
No, we don't. It's not because you haven't eaten a day that you're motivated to food.
Either or? Can you give them a choice?
Yes. You grab the ball, you grab food. Let me do that. Let me go grab a dog.
Without the clicker.
No, I am always rewarding with a clicker.
But only for food.
Only for food, sir, yes. I'm sorry?
You use the clicker for the entire lifespan of the dog?
Yes. You start talking to your wife in English the entire... Hang on.
Oh, she won?
Yeah. Wow.
Oh my god.
Okay. So do you want me to go throw the ball outside?
Ah, what did the clicker mean? Did the clicker mean go bite my ball, or did the clicker mean go bite food? Good job. Bite. Yeah?
You made that choice.
Yeah. So, this is how we could... Hier, kom. Relax. Los. Los. Liggen. Focus. So one of the things that we can do is just control work, yeah? Relax. Is we can test to see if the dog is motivated by food or a ball. Okay. Yeah? So, los. Ga zitten. Ga zitten. Tussen. Ga tussen. Los. Los. Liggen. Focus. So, and then focus. So, and then, so one of the things that when we have that, it's David, focus. Eventually, when we have control over the motivators, slowly but surely I can ask my dog, the things that I want. And then when people see me with my dogs, they see me in public, they see me, on the training field, they see all this kind of stuff. You don't see the dog, eh? You see the dog?
You're good. I was reading your comments.
Oh, thank you. Then eventually we can do it. And then when loslaten. So when people sit here and they see my dogs, they always ask me, how do I do this? And then I said, I'm teaching you. But then, but really? I say, yeah, but then I look at my timing table, and so I'm a little bit faster. You're a little bit slower. Nee, hier, jo! Kom! Ga liggen. Good, so it's the way I teach this is the way I communicate. Yeah, you look in his eyes a lot. So this is a personal protection dog. So he's coming to check you out once in a while. I said, yeah, are you doing a threat or what are you doing? So that is what he's doing. He's coming to check you out. So this is my personal protection dog.
She looked me right in the eye when she went by and hardly even...
Yeah, he's a very confident guy. Very confident. He's 6 years old. But it's because of that. It's a communication. It's a trust. I can bring him anywhere. He trusts me. I trust him. Good. And it's the way we do this is because we understand learning, and I did not focus on external behaviors from the get-go. I invest in engagement, I invest in mind state, I invest in calm behavior, and the most important thing is I invest in communication based upon trust, respect, and make sure that the interactions between me and my dog are fun. And the reasons why I was able to accomplish that is that I understand how dogs learn. And this is why I thought this was maybe a good lesson here, or this impromptu lesson, is to dive a little bit into, you know, how, you know, what is the science behind how dogs learn, and why do dogs do the things they do, you know. Good job.
Have you written any books? Do you have any published?
No, most of my stuff is videos and my articles on. Nee, hier on my lectures. Is klaar.
And German commands, you know, number one, they're not confusing to people because very few people speak German.
Mm-hmm.
But it would seem maybe wise to go to the German commands.
Yeah, eventually, like I always advise people to, you know, to have a set of commands that are not easily understood by others, especially when I deal with protection dogs or police dogs or military dogs or diabetic alert dogs or a PTSD dog, like any service dog, search and rescue dog, so that, you know, his daily communication is not confusing. Yeah, so that's why, I mean, so
the German words have more of a
oomph.
easy, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking like Achtung or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or
Achtung!
yeah, won't be
Pas op!
confusing.
And then he, so my former competition dog speaks 7 languages depending on the work she's doing. So by using, so she has several commands for down, but every down command means a little bit different thing.
I can't keep Zoe, like if mom's there or anybody, kids, she'll want to come up and do the necking with them, and I mean.
And that the thing is, like, be consistent in the reinforcing stuff,
So
you
it
know.
would be wise, like you said, initial with Zoe, she's too sociable.
België, nu. Yeah, I mean she loves people. Yeah.
So is that
Bye.
something that I should try to temper or take away at this stage?
Yeah, I would not. So one of the questions that people recht staan. Recht staan. Focus. Wachten. So one of the things that people always ask me is, my dog is very attracted to. That's cool, eh? Is very attracted to people, and they said is because you probably introduce him to people a lot, and then everybody pets him, and everybody can say hi to the dog. So of course your dog is always. Did it fall off? Kom hier. Recht staan. Recht staan. Wachten. So, of course, your dog is constantly being reinforced by people. Yeah. So one of the things that we need to do, wachten, is take that reinforcement away, take the people away from the dog. Because every guest that you come, every guest that interacts with the dog is a reinforcer for her behavior, for pushing, for coming to the people, for sticking her head under somebody's arm, and then she's getting petted. So it's that constant reinforcement of the behavior that we don't want that is happening. So my dogs, wacht, haha, I tricked you. Let's play.
But for a companion dog like Zoe, grandkids, kids in and out the house, you know, she's very playful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but she'll knock them down, especially as kids get to be a little more playful with her. It sounds like I need to kind of stop it.
Yeah. So we need to watch out is that we don't reinforce wild play, and that kids are associated with play.
Yeah. But they can come up to her, hug her, you know, roll her, and.
Yeah, but also like take a picture of what to do and what not to do with kids. Hugging is not okay. Rolling is not okay. Grabbing the dog is not okay. Doing this is not okay. Like that is not okay for a dog. Like when you don't have trust, this is like grabbing a dog, like hugging like this. That is not okay. Kids cannot do that. It's very dominant. Please. It's very dominant. So we need to watch out what we allow our kids to do, and we have control over what kids do. The dog does not know. I always laugh people, I want a dog that is genetically good with kids. Where are your kids genetically good with dogs? It's the same question. Some are yes, some are no. If you have genetically good kids that says, from her energy is great around animals because that's how they're born, and then the energy of the dog is great with kids because that's how he's born, then it's a really good match and we have a super success factor. But in most of the cases, we are the ones that need to educate the kids in how to be around the dogs. But then also, if we understand how dogs learn, if we understand why dogs do stuff because it's reinforcing for them, we're also going to start understanding that the increased arousal level around the kids is because of the stimulation kids. And because that arousal level is reinforced because of the kids. Does that make sense? Yeah. It is because the mailman goes away, that is why the dog keeps barking, because it's reinforced. Yeah, if the mailman would actually stand there and not put anything in your mailbox and not would knock on the door, then your dog says, why am I doing this? This is bullshit. Yeah, and eventually that will stop. So the reason why dogs continue to exhibit so many behaviors is because it's constantly reinforced for them. And then there's two things that we can do. We can either control the situation, or we can control the environment by telling the mailman, okay, stay there for a half a day, I'll pay your paycheck, don't go back to work, and eventually I have a great dog. Or, I can make sure that the dog, while I'm training him, while I'm conditioning him, has a visual access to that stimuli or stimulus that initiates that behavior. Does that make sense? And that is the hard part for us to do.
And then combining it with dominance, and I'm sorry, but one of the strange things when we would take Zoe camping, the first 24 hours, she's quiet, shy, timid of all the other campers. But after 24 hours, that campsite became hers.
Hers, of course.
And now she's barking at anything walking by, but the first 24 hours, it's like I've been beating her to death.
Yeah, it's because it's a new place. She's very anxious, and then she starts figuring out that hey, I actually like this place. And then she starts to become territorial, or the response from Zoe is because she's anxious. So that could be the case as well. Yeah, so sometimes we have that barking and territorial behavior because she's actually anxious and fearful, yeah, and not because she's dominant. So I would need to see her and read her in order to determine whether that behavior is actually territorial.
It's definitely territorial, in my opinion. It's like, this is mine.
Could be. Could be.
But now if they walk into the campsite, then it's, give me attention immediately.
From the people?
Yeah.
And then that's reinforced. So if the people give their attention, so then it's reinforced.
Well, they walk by again, she barks. Maybe,
and the people get...
confusing,
yeah. So the only thing that we can do there is deprive the dog from access to the people. Follow it.
Your dog with a girlfriend?
My dog? Come. Kadri.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Now, when you just let her in, that's into your house.
Yeah.
So she doesn't chew the furniture or get bored, or he?
No. No. And there's 3 other dogs in there too.
What do they do when they're in there?
Good, wants back in.
It's not him.
Oh, someone's saying my turn.
That's my black one. So I'll stop it. I can't let him in here. Go. Up. It's funny. This is a true story. Yesterday I was a little bit anxious yesterday evening, and then my female, who is very in tune with me, this is actually the truth, she brought me my Bible. Seriously. Yeah, I have this big blue letter Bible in there. I'll show you. And then you can see the teeth marks in it. So she brought me my Bible, and then she said I'm anxious, and she literally did this. This is the first time. So I'm writing a blog article about this and about energy, so which was incredible. But yeah, it really happened.
Significant other, it was your dog that brought you the book?
Yeah, my dog. Yeah, my dog. Because you sees when I read it, I'm always calm. So that's the conditioning. That's the association. As I know, every time I see him read, and then it was pretty funny, and she just grabbed it and was like a retrieve. It's like, oh my God, this really happened. This was yesterday. I couldn't believe it. True story. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is an example of how dogs learn. Yeah, and that is also the explanation why some dogs will take your favorite pocketbook. You have a favorite purse, and you're a little bit protective about that purse. The dog says, oh, that purse is really, really important for her. And then eventually the dog takes the purse or takes your favorite pair of shoes to do what? To initiate engagement or initiate, does that make sense? Chasement, because she knows when I have that, mom wants to be possessive about, because it's like we're very possessive about, our stuff. Oh, I hope he doesn't take my $1,000 pocketbook, And then we are actually territorial over our pocketbook, and now the dog says, hey, wait a minute. It's like the dog being possessive over the ball, and then the other dog says, like Baloo and Buddy, is that if I'm going to steal his ball, he's going to start chasing, and then we're going to have this incredible, intense game. And that's sometimes what happens when the dog steals our shoes or with our pocketbook, is to initiate that innate drive in a little bit of resource guarding, resource play, territorial play. It's ranking. Dogs love to do that. And it's been conditioned by our behavior around an object. Yeah? The same thing with the fireplace. If you have an open fireplace, or you go camping, you have a campfire, and now you're afraid that your dog's going to burn his nose, and we tend to become a little bit nervous around the campfire. We're going to start claiming this campfire as us, but with a very anxious energy, because we're afraid that our dog is going to get hurt when she comes too close. Now what are we doing? We're conditioning the dog that she needs to be afraid of the fire, and the fire actually means something. So now they start running around the fire, staying away, start barking at the fire, because we had this anxious energy around the fire. And now we created an anxious, chasing dog around the fire that barks nonstop on fire. Yeah,
So
because we're...
burn their nose. They're not going to burn their nose. They learn quickly.
Yeah. They will not. I mean, I have seen dogs walk through fire, but and burned up. But Charlie's dog, actually, a little dog, actually walked through the fire, and he toweled it out. Was blind and deaf, and.
I wish I could design and build a house for my dog. We made the mistake of designing it for us.
You know, but we do as good as we can. But like we baby-proof our house or toddler-proof our house, we can puppy-proof our dogs. And I always tell people a puppy is a dog from 0 to 2 years old. You know, that's not just a little baby. So, you know, if your counters are this high, but you have a Great Dane that's 8 months old, then putting a stake here is probably not the smartest idea. Putting it over here might be a better idea. Yeah, and that's what we need to do. So I hope this kind of lecture today gave you a little bit better insight in how dogs learn and how we can, you know, kind of reinforce and prevent reinforcement from other behaviors. Any more questions? Anything you want to add?
No, I'm confused. I need to think about a lot of the things I've learned today. Correcting my behavior. It's not training your dog. It's training yourself in order to train a dog.
Yeah, and that's why I do the way I do it is I try to educate people so they can train the dog. It's, I think, a much more efficient way of doing it because you live with the dog. I don't live with the dog. The dogs that I live with are fine, and the way I did it is the way I'm doing it. Yeah, David, any questions?
Sound good.
Sir, any more questions? Yes.
Really quick. So the negative reinforcement with the crate, like a couple seconds, boom, out. But also the crate is where she sleeps.
Yes.
So it's a good place too.
Yes. It's a neutral place.
It's a neutral place.
Yes. It's not the crate that is negatively associated. It's you that provided the social isolation. Does that make sense? Because the crate is actually not doing anything negative to her.
Right. Does she have to change like her behavior before you let her out? What if she doesn't? She's still barking.
Then she stays in the crate.
Okay, so she can stay in for more than 4 seconds.
As if the bad behavior is continued. Yes, yeah. 100%. But she's quiet, 1, 2, 3, out.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah? And then she barks again, go back in. And then sometimes we need to do that like 200 times.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It absolutely works. Yeah, believe me.
Stick with it for an hour, 200 times, that operant.
Until it stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you, a lot of times when I just put Buddy or Baloo in their crate, I don't close the door. It just goes in, and they will stay there, and then I let them back out. Is that fine, or do you think closing the door?
I always close the door just to make sure they don't self-reinforce to get out.
Okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, any questions?
No, but I liked learning that the whining may not be something she even realizes she's doing.
So one of the things,
I have a video. I want you to
yeah, send me a couple videos from a couple days, because one isolated moment is not going to be enough for me to determine whether it's that. I want to see it often, and in different, if she does it in different scenarios, I like to do it.
It's only when she sleeps in our room, when we get up in the morning and we start moving about our day. Or when we come home and come into our bedroom, she's in our bedroom, does she get really anxious and do the pacing and the whining? She doesn't do it by herself.
Okay.
And doesn't do it if we're just, after a while. Only immediate response.
Okay, and you have video?
I do have a video. I want to show it to you.
Okay, yes, let's do that.
Pretty consistent.
Okay, good. Then Facebook, I'll check if you guys have questions. Then I want to thank everybody. Tomorrow we'll work all the dogs, so tomorrow is going to be a dry day, not as wet. The fields again were super slippery this morning, so I want to have the water recede a little bit. I played with my dogs this morning, and they're sliding everywhere. So we'll work the dogs again. So if you could come tomorrow, let's do that. I would love to. Anywhere in the morning between 10 and 1. Yeah, you can always come. And then I'm going to stop right here. Shoot me any questions or comments under the video. I'll answer all of them. And then, I will see you guys in the next lecture and next session. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you.